Welcome to the Intrazone, a show about the Microsoft 365 Intelligent Intranet. I'm Mark Cashman, Senior Product Manager at Microsoft, soon to be joined by a true tech tinkerer. On today's episode, I chat with John Moore, an enterprise architect and Microsoft MVP, specializing in Microsoft Teams, Viva Engage, Microsoft Stream, and virtual events. Not only is John a great resource to understand the ins and outs of Teams, Engage, and more, he recently invested in an Apple Vision Pro and started testing the productivity of Teams and Outlook from within the Vision OS experience. So, we grabbed time with John to talk about some of the headset features and what he thought about it, some of the challenges he was coming across as he started to use it, and the benefits, and to really focus on John's experience using his persona during a Teams meetings, including the spatial audio experience. We of course centered on the Vision OS experience of Microsoft Teams and Outlook, the apps and their experiences, and last, we asked John what he wants to see next, both from Microsoft, because he has a lot of great feedback and insights, both as an MVP and just as a user of the technology, to give us real good guidance on where we could take our integrations with the Vision Pro next, and also to give a little feedback to Apple and what they could support so that there's better integration with other Apple devices. There's one fun meta point. When we actually recorded the video, we connected via a normal one-on-one Teams meeting, and you guessed it, John joined in true form and true fashion through true Teams tech. He was using the Vision Pro as it was intended, with Teams in the Vision Pro experience, to join and chat with me. So yes, I will include some images of what John looked like on my end as we talked, plus a few screen grabs so you can see what John spatially saw on his end, plus a fun one of just John wearing the Vision Pro headset. You can check the related blog for sure to get a look at all the look and feel of John using the Vision Pro, especially kind of what it looked like from his perspective. It is time to clear out your spatial headspace. Here comes John Moore with more about his early Vision OS tinkerings, working with digital content and communication in his physical space, aka up-leveling his Vision Pro adductivity. All right, it is time to get a little bit more in the head of another. Get outside of the Cashman head and get into John Moore's head. Literally and figuratively, we are going to see the inside of John Moore's head. And John, I hope you don't mind that we're going to go there. Welcome
good.
To the Interzone. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been listening to the Interzone since the very beginning, so it's exciting to join you today, Mark.
If you're listening to this, obviously it's mostly audio only, but definitely in the blog, we're going to have a screenshot or a little bit of video so you can see John is joining for the purpose of the conversation of what we're going to talk about. He's joining this Teams meeting through a Vision Pro headset, using Teams inside the Vision Pro headset, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about. So I don't want to call it a meta point because that might call out the wrong company, but it's definitely to the core of what we're going to be talking about Apple's new Vision Pro headset. If you can just give us a synopsis of what you've been tinkering with, if we haven't hinted enough already, what have you been playing with? What's on your face right now, and kind of your initial take on it?
I've always been kind of a early adopter and a bit of a gadget fan, so seeing the Apple Vision Pro get announced and then more details emerge about it, I was convincing myself whether or not I was going to wait until version 2, version 3, kind of down the line, or adopt to the first one. And as I saw more and more stuff emerge about it, especially when I saw the announcements about the Microsoft product, the application support near the beginning of the launch of Apple Vision Pro, I was like, well, I think this is a good opportunity to jump in and really see what it's about. It's kind of exciting, like, the first iPhone or the first iPad, where it's very much a version 1 of the product, but, it's exciting to see it go from such a thin amount of apps and, people really exploring and experimenting with an entirely new form factor for what Apple's been doing. It's been a really exciting past month. I've had it for about 6 weeks now. I bought it after the first weekend that the Apple Vision Pro came out. And, it's like you can try new experimental things with the spatial computing, but you've kind of got that safety net of just being able to connect to a virtual screen and run the apps as normal, so I can use the applications like Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and Outlook in my normal flat experience, but then I can also jump into the new spatial and, kind of feel what the future is going to look like.
Does the headset and the operating system, and I'm not trying to ding Apple because it's pretty amazing from everything I've seen, what you've put out there on YouTube and certainly reading a lot of things. But just from a headset and the operating system that's really the core of it, the Vision OS, do they both feel V1, or does Vision OS kind of relate to things that we know about the iPhone, the Mac, the iPad? Or does it feel like it's a real fresh canvas?
Yeah. I think it does feel pretty fresh. It does feel pretty V1 from a hardware and a software perspective, right? There's a lot of quality of life things that the community is really hoping for to see, maybe at WWDC, maybe this summer or maybe in the fall. Hopefully like a Vision OS 2.0 comes out with some of the things, a little bit refined and tweaked. But from a software perspective, it is that Apple ecosystem. I think the thing that really kind of carries it to feel like a fairly polished product is the fact that like the unity and kind of continuity of the working with an Apple computer and an Apple headset and an Apple phone, a lot of that is there by default, so like I can just look at my computer and connect to it really easily. You've got that ability to copy something from your computer and paste it in the headset and vice versa, right? So it's easy to move between the devices. But there's some things that
I thought copy paste was not supposed to come till V3. If I remember correctly,
yeah, right.
The iPhone, that was such a big feature in V3.
Yeah, it's so nice having that right off the bat. But like one thing that's really basic is like I've got an Apple Watch too, right? And when the height of the pandemic, when we were all wearing masks, if you opened up your phone with a mask on, your watch would unlock your phone, right? You had that kind of handoff. Well, we don't have that yet with the Vision Pro. So for instance, when I'm logging into a Microsoft service and it wants me to confirm on Authenticator, for instance, I have to basically lift the headset off my face, look at my phone, and then, so the Face ID isn't really integrated over with the eye tracking that's built into the headset. So some of those polished things where it's like 80% there,
Are you making a feature recommendation that Authenticator needs to learn how to do MFA with your persona?
Yeah, I think that would be really nice. Like there's I think they call it visual ID, I believe, where when you put it on, it's interesting. You get a little eyeball icon as it looks at your eye, scans it, and unlocks. So you don't have to put in a PIN. It would be interesting if, you could kind of pass that off from between the phone, so that those authenticator prompts. What I ended up doing for all of my other accounts is I set up the Outlook iPad version on the Vision Pro. And what I did is I told it to be my authenticator. So rather than going to my phone, I can just look up in my Vision and I can accept the authentication prompt inside of Outlook, right? So that I'm not leaving the experience. So little tips and tricks like that I've picked up along the way.
That's really cool. So I want to get into some of the things that I've seen you early adopting or at least tinkering with. And certainly on this call, I can see that you're adopting it. And I just wanted to pause there for a second, not so much to pause the recording, but just to tell everybody, if you are just listening to this, I'm just on a regular old Opal C1 camera, decent webcam, but nothing severely. But, it's just me talking with John. John is using the headset, and I can see his persona, and I'll ask you to clarify sort of the latest version of your persona. I can see your hands moving. Your face tracking is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And, it is as if I'm through Teams chatting with you. Definitely up levels from what I feel like is kind of your common avatar, which is great technology, but it's very much a representation of you, where this really feels like you coming through. But what is that last, little update to the persona that you were explaining to me just as we were first connecting, but just for everybody, what's that latest update?
When I started with the Vision Pro, there was version 1.03, I believe it was. And now we're on Vision OS 1.1, which had persona updates. So the visual fidelity of the face and moving the facial movements of my eyebrows and my mouth, it's gotten a little bit improved. And the big thing I've noticed improved is the hair and beard, right? So that was a big struggle I had before, was the beard kind of looked...
I wanted to ask if it gave you the option to go ZZ Top, or if it was a little bit more coiffed if you wanted to be, but I was going to let you know the beard is coming through perfectly.
Oh, good. I was worried about that. So the beard before was kind of like just it looked more solid, right? And now with the new one, it moves with my face a little bit better. I had a lot of trouble scanning my face at first as a bearded person, where the guide that runs you through it was telling me to stop frowning, basically. It was like, have a neutral a neutral expression. And I think it was because it saw my mustache as if I was frowning, and it was hard to get through it, but it's a lot smoother now and a lot better fidelity. I would say that when it comes to the persona versus the Microsoft Mesh avatar, there's some differences in, I feel like it looks more like me, the persona does, and it's a little bit more a representation of what's accurate with me. But what's interesting about the Mesh ones is that you can try on different styles, and you can almost, take a little bit of what you want to be or how you see yourself, right? And for some people, that might be a better thing for them from a confidence perspective, right? To represent themselves how they want to be represented, and not quite a camera-based only type of atmosphere. So, the Mesh one, it gives you a little bit more freedom and a little bit more, ability to express yourself. Another thing that is that you're looking at me with the persona avatar, and I've got just this kind of, neutral office in the background with a couple of pictures. I don't have the ability to change that at all. But if I switch to the Teams avatar, you have the full background support in Microsoft Teams. So you're able, again, to have a little bit more either realistic background or do something more fun if you want a custom, Minecraft background or something. Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of go through, what is the Teams experience? Not a full detail. We'll point to your full explainer videos. But just before we talk about maybe a couple of the apps that you've been trying they're in the Microsoft wheelhouse, what is your experience of me in the headset? Is it just kind of a flat 2D, it's just me and my camera's on and you can see me chatting? Or is it a little bit of a different layout than maybe what we're normally used to in just a normal Teams experience?
No, it's very familiar. It looks a lot like the mobile version or the iPad version, where I see your head and shoulders look about life size to me, which is nice. And looking directly at you, that's where my gaze is as far as my persona. I've got other windows open, and you might notice if I look over to another window, you're seeing the side of my face right now. Yep. But when I'm looking at the Teams meeting, it's interesting because it looks like I'm making better eye contact. But yeah, I see just a video of you. I see myself in the bottom corner as my persona. And then across the bottom, we've got that control bar for Microsoft Teams. So I've got the chat, the participants. I can do reactions. So I can raise my hand, do a thumbs up. I've got video, audio. And then I've got the little dots or that kind of extra menu where I can do all of the things that I could do from an iOS perspective, like turn on live captions or put myself on hold, change the view of the meeting, stuff like that. But Yeah, the Teams app is a native app experience. There's kind of two flavors of apps with the Vision Pro. There's the native Vision OS, which is designed and built for that spatial environment. And then there's compatible apps, which is basically iPad OS apps that are a flat window. And Microsoft Teams is one of those native applications. But for example, the Microsoft Loop app and the Microsoft Copilot app are both compatible apps. So I can have them as a window, but they look like a phone screen or like an iPad screen.
Yeah.
So, but you have like nice transparency in Teams and it looks really good.
Well, it looks really good. And I thought maybe we can move off of talking about Teams to one of, if there's another native app or just one that you've, kind of played with, maybe Outlook or another. But I'd love to see, I'm going to try to think of something clever to say just so you can send a reaction. But I'll just say, hey, John, I've loved watching your YouTube videos, not just about the Vision OS, but, everything you and Andy have done and some of the stuff that you did. And I remember sounds like you make also really good cookies. All right. So the heart came through, and hopefully on your end, not too hard to hit the reaction as far as, sometimes you fiddle around like, where's the react, and then choosing the right reaction. But yeah, I was hoping that those would be easy to do in terms of the complexities that I imagine when you have the headset on. They really do have to make, the pinching or the pointing or, all the gestures a lot easier.
Yeah, it's kind of a different way to navigate where you're using your vision to move around. So your eyes are your cursor. And that takes a little bit of getting used to, is being able to accurately look at a button. Because what you find is we look at the area where a button is when we're using a normal mouse and keyboard.
Yeah.
And you have to be more accurate whenever you're using your eyes to actually highlight a button, which is kind of interesting from like an accessibility perspective, and learning a little bit about, how maybe some people who have different needs to navigate their computer in different ways, how, traditional design concepts might be difficult for that type of navigation, right? So it's a new way to experience, navigating around a computer.
Well, it definitely brings your eyes in as far as us talking together. And I can imagine the precise, just you've probably gotten a lot more used to it than when you started, like any other tech, just the kind of the how it works. But I love that there probably is both a focus of accessibility in the headset, 100%. And I bet in our apps, getting the target zone, even with a phone app, to getting the right, size for your finger and the scroll mechanisms, and whatever, we've all gotten pretty used to that. But so what is another core Microsoft 365 app that you could give us a sense of the experience and any real use or at least depth use that you've been doing with it?
Yeah, I would say two applications that I use outside of Microsoft Teams are Microsoft Outlook and the Microsoft Copilot app. I pretty much have those running all the time in Vision OS. And for the Outlook application, it's the iPad version. So I have that in the landscape mode, if you will. And that's got, my email and my calendar. That's primarily what I'm doing in those applications with Teams next to it. And then for Copilot, I use the iPad version as well, but I turn that to a portrait mode. So it looks like a phone version of like a skinny Copilot that I can just always have up and available. And I find that a lot more accessible than using the Copilot app in Microsoft Teams, because with Teams, it's a single window interface.
Yeah.
So I don't have the ability to pop out windows like you can on a desktop version. So it's helpful to have Copilot always there alongside. And the way that I navigate Copilot the best, my favorite way of interacting with it in Vision OS is using my voice, actually. So I'd never use this on my computer. I'm usually typing my prompts, but it's so much more natural to just click the microphone and then talk to Copilot as if it was a real assistant. And that's been a really interesting experience, as it replies back with audio as well. So I kind of have it just on the side as like a little assistant. Yeah.
And have you named it Jarvis by any chance?
Not yet. It's still Copilot for me. I won't dare call it Sydney. you know.
That's probably a good choice. Last question on sort of the app experience, especially when you think about either a native app, like you said, with Teams, or you've got the iPad versions for the other apps. Is everything resizable? When I think of accessibility, like you mentioned, I think, I know sometimes it used to be that if I had an app that wasn't built for iPad, you'd get this kind of 2X looking thing, and it wasn't great on the iPad. And then, but in this OS, I imagine you can pinch and zoom, or however it works, to whatever size and whatever location, pretty much to your own design. Is that true for everything?
Yeah, it really is. You simply just look at the corner of the window that you're in, and then you can resize it small or large, however in between that you want. So I've got it's probably the equivalent of you're on like a 55-inch TV for me right now.
Yeah.
So it looks really big and really crisp. But I was recently on a flight to Miami and back from Miami last week, and I was that guy. I put the Vision Pro on, wondering like if people were going to react to me. And I just turned up the environment, and it was like a 200-inch screen right in front of me. And it really took me out of the flight for those couple hours that I was watching a movie, a lot more than the previous headsets I've used in the past. So it was definitely a good experience, and you can really, tweak it to be however you want, with skinny windows or wide windows, large, small, and you kind of just grab them and just place them wherever you want around you.
So let's put ourselves in a room of your design, both physically and mentally, that has both an Apple representative and a Microsoft representative that have the power to do something about what comes next in these experiences. We'll start with the Apple person. If you had one or two things that you would love to see next, either in how apps can interact with the Vision OS, the headset, what would that one thing or two things be to the Apple person?
I think for the Apple perspective and the native OS, it would be just better integration with the other devices that I have. Like I mentioned, if I get an alert on my phone, to be able to pick up my phone and have it auto unlock because I'm already authenticated. Or typing is probably the hardest thing to do in the Apple Vision Pro. So if you could, for instance, use your phone to type on your phone and have it like send over to the Vision text box that you're in or something, I think that would smooth the process out a little bit more if they could handshake a little bit better.
Yeah, I would imagine those things are crucial as far as the long form input, besides speech to text and the actual video like you and I chatting. But getting, especially when you think of something like Copilot, you'd love to do a really nice, clean prompt or, interaction. And okay, so that's for Apple. We've taken a bite out of Apple, and we'll give them that feedback. We turn now to, in your virtual room, the Microsoft person has been waiting patiently. All right, what do you got for me as feedback? What do we tell either a product person who's thinking about a next app, or just a general nature of how Microsoft should think about Vision OS?
Yeah, the big thing really is the availability of all of the applications and all of the Microsoft ecosystem. So we've got Teams and Word and Excel and PowerPoint as native apps. It would be interesting to see what a native experience for Outlook might look like. Or the big thing that's blocking a lot of enterprise folks from being able to really take on the Vision Pro as like a serious work device is the missing of Authenticator and the Intune company portal. So because my organization, my work organization, has conditional access and Intune as a requirement, I can't yet enroll this device. So I'm not able to log in with my corporate credentials. I get to use my MVP credentials and my personal account, in that way. So that's what I've seen a lot of feedback from people on my videos and people on Reddit, and other communities, is they're waiting for that Intune support, and then they'll be able to use it with their actual work stuff, and there's a lot of people that are excited about that, especially from like a travel and a privacy perspective of being able to sit on a plane and work on sensitive information in the Vision OS without having somebody look over their shoulder, things like that.
Yeah, right. It's like
exactly,
the ultimate
but
extreme
Yeah,
That's cool.
once we're able to enroll the devices properly, I think then it would really have legs in the enterprise.
Interesting. It's funny you say have legs in the enterprise. Are you making a reference to the mesh team, what they got to
No.
work on?
No, that I walked right into that one, didn't I?
Nice. That was a good double punch. So my last question for you, I have a lot of interest. I have not adopted any headset. I just have the kind of the motion sickness, and I hope that I bet that they've kind of leaps and bounds about that. But I haven't ventured. I've kind of watched what other colleagues are saying. Obviously, some like Jeff Teeper and Omar Shaheen, and what you've been doing. So I've been kind of getting that as a second hand. But outside of Microsoft and anything that we've covered already, is there one thing that just sort of blows you away about the OS or another app that you've used that just is kind of like, wow, that's just really cool, new, innovative, whatever that might be?
I think it's really basic, but the thing that has impressed me the most is the spatial awareness of not having to set up my room and scan things and get it set up like in the past I've used a Meta Quest 2 and a Meta Quest Pro. I still have the Pro. And you have to kind of scan your room to create a boundary that's like a safety zone, right? And with the Apple one, you put it on and it immediately is scanning in the background. So I can lay out the windows however I want, and then I can walk away to another space and come back and they're exactly where I left them. They don't drift at all. And you can physically walk around a window and see it from all angles. And it really looks like it's in the real world, which is very impressive compared to, a lot of the other devices. They'll shift or they'll get off kilter a little bit. And that does kind of lead to that motion sickness that you mentioned. I had that at the beginning and had to kind of get over it. With the Apple one, I think the resolution is so high and the pass-through is so good that I certainly don't get any kind of like out-of-body feeling or motion sickness feeling. It's really impressive.
That's cool. Well, it's on my, due diligence of interest. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm very happy that you are willing to share. You're there, and certainly I've seen you now through as your persona. It was really great to chat with you. Thank you for your time. If I get brave, maybe we'll see each other in the future metaverse or another event that's coming up. Thank you for joining as John Persona in the Intrazone.
Thanks so much for having me.
As you heard, John is a tech tinkerer extraordinaire. I hope you've enjoyed this near spatial audio experience with your guide, John Moore, to experience what the within experience of donning the Vision Pro headset, that he was able to share more about the real productivity gains and experiences for what it would be like if you had an Apple Vision Pro and joined into this new spatial computing with your device paired with Microsoft 365 productivity apps. It is unique, no doubt, just even watching him showcase and show a few things around. I got a little bit of sense of idea. I haven't tried it myself, but I absolutely thank John for hopping on the Intrazone and sharing in real time over a Teams chat. Before we move to talk about a few upcoming community events, I wanted to note that John and his partner in crime, William Andy Honeycutt, have a new YouTube channel called 365 Deep Dive. You can go to youtube.com/@365deepdive. They deeply dive into a lot of Microsoft 365 technology. I've joined them a number of times as a listener, and they really do go deep. They take you on a deep dive. You almost need like true scuba certification just to keep up with all the bells and whistles and fun and no holds bars way of looking at Microsoft 365. So a shout out to their new show, 365 Deep Dive. And with that, let us move into talking about a few upcoming community event opportunities. One that is happening right now. Happening right now is the North American Cloud and Collaboration Summit. This is in Dallas, Texas this year, April 9th through the 11th. This is with our friend of the show and friend of the community, Mark Rackley and team, who are putting on the show. And it is also one that not only focuses on Microsoft 365 cloud technologies, but also brings in the perspective of competition, the look of what other clouds might offer in the context of cloud-to-cloud competition as you decide as the attendee. There's a lot to offer. Certainly the show is happening now. It's one to keep an eye on. If you are in the Dallas, Texas area, scoot on over or think about joining them next year. Next up is Comms vNext. This is in Denver, Colorado, April 24th through the 25th. This is a real focus of calling and communication. Effectively, what used to be the Link conference is now more driven as a community, non-for-profit organization. And it brings into, as you would imagine it, unified communications in the modern era. So our team is sending a lot of folks from the Microsoft Teams team, specifically devices, rooms, and calling. But of course, there's a lot to be offered from the community, a lot of guest speakers, and a lot of things to learn, especially if that is a big focus for you to support UC in your organization. Comms vNext in Denver, April 24th through the 25th. Next is one very specific to SharePoint, specifically the intranet. It's called Intranet Insights 2024, and this is online and not only in 2024, but it's on April 24th. And this is something where you'll really get a look at how it is you can best modernize your digital workspace, where people gather together, share information, post news, and of course, communicate and engage in a two-way fashion. It really is from experts how to optimize what you have, or how to give yourself a little bit of a North Star to head towards. The plumbing from a IT perspective, business and strategy and visions perspective, and everything in between that you need to know to hone up your intranet and really make it what you want it to be. Next is the Microsoft 365 Community Conference. This is in Orlando, Florida, April 30th through May 2nd. There are also 2 pre-day workshops and 1 post-day workshop day. And you will cover everything under the sun with Microsoft 365, a little bit of Power Platform thrown in there, and everything you need to know as a business user, IT, and developer. There's a lot of people coming from Microsoft. There's a lot of people from the community, of course, MVPs, community leads, and there are sessions of all types that you can imagine with unique product updates and a lot of deep dives and how to use and adopt, but also some unique content around diversity and inclusion, how to best interpret and perform in your career. A lot of great offerings. It's a really broad and big event, and that's happening in Orlando, April 30th through May 2nd. Next, a couple weeks later and across the pond is the European Collaboration Summit, and it's also co-located with the European Cloud Summit. This is in Wiesbaden, Germany, May 14th through the 16th, and it is a big event. It is probably going to have up to 3,000 people, with multiple keynotes from Microsoft, a lot of great breakout sessions from both Microsoft and the community and MVPs, and it covers the gamut, cloud and collab, meaning Microsoft 365, Power Platform, Azure, pretty much everything under the sun under the Microsoft portfolio. I'm going to be there helping out with one of the keynotes to kick things off, and then I have a session where I'll be sharing more about Microsoft lists, and again, that's alongside a ton of great subject matter experts there to share their learnings and, of course, listen to your feedback and answer your questions. Next, May 22nd, this is the SharePoint Intranet Festival. There's a lot going on around the SharePoint Intranet, and this specific one is from the Swoop Analytics team. Not only does it have a focus on the product SharePoint specifically for the intranet, but a lot of the content is delivered through the eyes and the direct feedback from customers. There's a lot of customers who are presenting what they've done with SharePoint for their intranet. So you get a really nice look at how the real-world implementations of the intranet, primarily based on SharePoint in Microsoft 365. I think there's a few things sprinkled in there that migrated from on-prem into the cloud, those stories as well. And I'm pleased to help kick off that day along with some of my peers who will be managing and supporting sessions throughout the full day. It's delivered for 3 different time zones, so it's absolutely available to you in your time zone to engage, to ask questions, and to get a lot of great insights from customers. Last bit of events, I want to make sure that you always tune in and review and share things that you find on communitydays.org, or if there's anything missing, to either submit it to yourself on communitydays.org if you're managing an event, or if there's something that's missing and you'd love to have it covered on the IntraZone in the future, please do let us know about your event or an event that you think requires and deserves some broadcast attention from yours truly and Chris McNulty on the Intrazone. I want to thank our guest, John Moore, for being on the show and for bringing us audibly into his spatial computing experimentation. We encourage you to check out our show page for links to all of what was discussed today and more. Just go to aka.ms/theintrazone. Send us your questions and feedback for the SharePoint teams. And of course, John Moore, you can reach us via email at theintrazone@microsoft.com or via Twitter at SharePoint at John_Moore with 2 O's, at mcashman, and at cmcnulty2000. Remember to rate, review, and tell all your friends, virtual or real, about the show. Follow the show wherever you get your favorite tech podcasts, which might be these days when using the Apple Vision Pro, tuning in via the Apple Podcasts app, which on the Apple Vision Pro and Vision OS is an iPad app that works really nice with the Apple Vision Pro. You just pinch and drag the reorder button to reorder the Intrazone right up to the top of your Vision OS queue. I thank you for listening. I'm your host, Mark Cashman. This has been The Intrazone, a show about the Microsoft 365 spatially significant intelligent intranet.